Get some lunch? Blake asked Alexis as he pulled away from the courthouse. It was 11:30, and the job had gone off with no issues. Not that he thought there would be any. The client's ex-husband hadn't showed up at the courthouse to make trouble for their client. Alexis's job was to stay near the entrance and notify Blake via two-way radio if he appeared. He hadn't, and they'd been able to leave Colorado Springs before noon. He'd never thought hiring Alexis would work out. In fact, he'd been extremely reluctant to work with her. He was almost ashamed to admit it, but the fact that she was rich played a big part in his reticence. After seeing how Grace's very wealthy parents conducted themselves, and having more than his share of run-ins with women who had money, he hadn't wanted anything to do with someone who he assumed was probably spoiled rotten and used to getting her way. But Alexis had surprised him. She was down to earth and easy to be around. Most of the time, he completely forgot she and her family had more money than he'd ever see in a lifetime. Not only that, but she was actually an excellent employee, willing to do whatever was asked of her without complaint. And, as a bonus, many times female clients were more comfortable with her than with him or either of his brothers. Lex was friendly and had a way of making their clients relax that he and his brothers weren't always able to do. Some of it had to do with the fact that most of their clients were women who had been abused by men, but most of it was simply Lex. When she first started working for Ace Security, Blake had thought she'd get bored within a week. He knew her work history, and the security business wasn't exactly glamorous. It was a lot of observation, research, and waiting around and watching for trouble. But Alexis had taken to it like a duck took to water. He'd never spent as much time with a woman as he had with Alexis Grant. Most of the time, she was quiet. So quiet that some days he forgot she was working in the office across from him. She didn't nag or bitch when things didn't go her way. She never threw her money in his face or flaunted it. But she was also funny. She had a lightning-quick wit and wasn't afraid to stand up for herself or those around her. She tried to portray herself as an experienced woman who'd seen and done just about everything, but there were times when it just didn't ring true. And it was those times that fascinated and intrigued Blake the most, made him want to needle her a bit more and get under the shield she seemed to keep up to hide from the world. In a lot of ways, she was a complete mystery, and lately he'd found himself more and more interested in Alexis Grant. His conversation with her that morning had only piqued his interest. She'd tried to hide how hurt she was when he'd basically accused her of being nothing more than an airhead rich bitch, but he saw something different in her very expressive face that had been reflected in the window. He hadn't exactly meant for his words to sound the way they had, but her reaction proved that she wasn't a rich chick flitting around from job to job, but rather that she was still searching for something that fed the passion she obviously had inside her. When he thought about how her former bosses and customers had hit on her, it made his blood boil. Yes, she'd had 5 or so jobs since she'd graduated, but he admired her for not putting up with any bullshit. Alexis Grant would never be anyone's doormat. I don't know, Alexis hedged. Eating might take a while. Come on, you have to be hungry. We've been up for hours, and all you've had was that cup of coffee I brought you. It's not like I need to eat. I'm certainly not wasting away. But fine, only if I pay. Blake ignored the crack about her weight, not happy with Lex's perception of her curvy body. It seemed perfect to him, but he knew nothing he could say would sway her thinking. Like most women, her view of herself was skewed by the media's representation of what was beautiful, and it would most likely take more than words to... But he wasn't going there. At least not yet. If nothing else, Blake knew he had to move slowly around the skittish woman. He had no idea what her experiences were with men, but she didn't exactly come off as experienced, no matter how hard she tried. "You are not paying," he told her firmly,